folks, Rain of Galen here, and welcome to another episode of Rain Makes Stuff. Today I'm going to be showing you how I made this perfect amulet from the Devil May Cry series. And why is this a cool amulet, you might ask? Well, because it can be worn as a single amulet, or it can be worn as two separate pieces. I'm going to be giving this away, so be sure to stick around until the end of the video to learn how you can win this perfect amulet from Devil May Cry. So without any further ado, let's start crafting.
Very well. Where do I begin?
After weighing several options, I'm choosing to go with 3D printed gems in the center of each amulet, because that's what I planned from the start, not because I failed miserably at making a resin mold and deleted all the footage so no one would know.
I am very, very sneaky, sir.
Since I'll be getting clay all over it while making the amulets, I'm printing a test gem in gray first. After a show of force, I've got my gem and I'm ready to start making the amulets out of Sculpt Primo clay. I'm going to do this by hand instead of using tools because the shape has a very organic feel to it. That means I should be able to make two of these without them looking noticeably different from one another. Now to erase my fingerprints with some isopropyl alcohol before coating each amulet in either gold or silver Pearl X pigment. This is my favorite method for making clay look like shiny metal, and I apply it directly to the unbaked clay just before popping it into the oven. Once the two halves are baked, I'll add a thin sheet of clay to the back of each one, that way I can create a way to hang the chain from them as well as figure out how to make them stick together as the perfect amulet. Uncured and baked clay don't really stick together, so I'm pulling out my friend's Sculpt glue to help out. Next, I'll smooth the edges of the front and back together to make each amulet look like one solid piece, while my camera decides what it wants to focus on. While making the backs, my genius exploded in the form of the idea to use small round magnets to hold the two amulet halves together. I found these two decorative belts in my broken jewelry drawer, and the chains on them should be perfect for the amulets. I'll also repurpose several of the jump rings from the belts to create a way to attach the chains to the amulets by straightening and pressing them into the clay. By the way, did you hear about my new Patreon? It's a great way to get more involved with this channel and help it grow. I'll throw a link at the top of the screen as well as in the description, so be sure to check it out. Now I'll smooth the edges of Dante's silver amulet before embedding the straightened jump rings into the back just as we did with Vergil's gold amulet. The last step before we bake these for the last time is to coat the backs of the amulets in silver and gold pigment just as we did on the fronts. While they're baking, I get to take a break to play with sharp objects. This is going to be a very important piece of the project. I've mixed some UV resin with a small amount of gold pigment and layered that onto the amulet, and I'll swirl in some black acrylic paint to create the swirled look on it. Some folks make this amulet with etched designs, but to me those markings look more like metallic swirls, so yeah. This UV resin I have is pretty cheap, so after swirling in the black paint, I'll pass my UV light over it a few times to let the top layer solidify before actually putting it outside to let it cure the rest of the way in the sun. While they're curing, my final gems just finished printing, so I can smooth the top layer with some resin before combining them with the amulet bases once everything is cured. I'm also adding a little crimson dye into the resin to deepen the red color and reduce the visibility of the layer lines. Once everything's set, I'll add the gems to the amulet bases and give everything a final coat of clear UV resin to seal everything together. Again, I'll use a UV light to seal the top layer, then throw everything outside to cure in the sun. After about a half hour, it's time for final assembly. Believe it or not, this is actually the hardest part of this entire project. But with the power of editing, we can make it look super duper easy. Time for a coffee break. In addition to supporting us on Patreon, did you know you can support this channel by simply buying me a coffee? It helps me spend money on more important things like, craft supplies. Anyway, once we get the chain attached to both amulets, it's time to test our magnet to see if it will hold together. I'll probably need to add one more magnet in between the two, but otherwise, I'd call that a success.
So that's it. That's the Devil May Cry Perfect Amulet with 2 separate pieces that can be put together with a magnet. If you'd like a chance to win this amulet, leave a comment below with your favorite Devil May Cry game, and I'll be choosing a random person from the comments and sending this their way. I'm also going to be announcing the winner of this amulet in my next video, so until then, check out our new Patreon page, or if you're not ready for that level of commitment, you can also buy me a coffee. I need more. Or check out this video, which I think you'll like. Bye-bye.